Watching the smile fade from a character like Suguru Geto is incredibly painful for us as viewers. A disciplined and composed boy who desired nothing but balance ultimately became the very person who rejected that balance. Triggering such a shift in someone with such a grounded moral compass is extremely difficult, but not impossible. We must remember that the world of Jujutsu revolves around tragic events. Therefore, every future sorcerer must have nerves of steel. Clearly, a moment came for Geto where the cup of bitterness finally overflowed, and from the second most talented student emerged the worst curse user in history. How did this happen? What pushed Gojo's friend towards such a transformation? First of all, as we've noticed, Suguru was the half of the duo that adhered much more strictly to the prevailing rules. In fact, when dealing with the rebellious Satoru, he would often quote the Jujutsu Sorcerer Code. However, on his path of development, he encountered something that fundamentally overturned his worldview. And no, I am not talking about Riko Amanai, but Toji Fushiguro. Imagine growing up free in a community where nothing can threaten you, and you've grown accustomed to handling every opponent with ease. What then is the appearance of Toji? Toji is a challenge to the established order, a factor that forces you to either adapt or fade into oblivion. During their duel, Geto realized that despite being a self-proclaimed strongest, they weren't even close to stopping Toji from completing his contract. When your strongest weapons are humbled by an opponent's sheer dominance, how can you even dare to call yourself a chosen one? This moment was so deeply etched in the protagonist's psyche that he began calling non-sorcerers monkeys. It was all because of Toji, the negation of Jujutsu, which is exactly how Toji described himself. From that point on, a true emotional roller coaster began for our hero. As we all know, it is easiest to influence a person when they start to spiral or after a life-altering event. That was exactly the case here. Entering the religious group's headquarters, Geto was certain he would see the remains of Riko and his former friend. Instead, he met someone he couldn't even recognize, as reflected in Satoru's words. "Is that you?" Before a moment could pass, this blood-boiling sight turned into a question that tested Suguru Geto's future identity. Should we kill them? It was a call to break away from his previous values, and Gojo directed it to his friend because Geto had always been his moral compass. Fortunately, at that moment, that desire was rejected. Geto explained his decision by saying that everyone has a purpose in life, and Jujutsu sorcerers know this best. A few days passed, and the traumatized Geto began to dwell on those events more than anyone else. This period of his life unfortunately coincided with further incidents that pushed Gojo's friend closer to the dark side. First, Yuki Tsukumo explained to him that the only ways to create a world without curses is either reducing human cursed energy to zero, which occurred only in Toji's case and therefore impossible, or their elimination. She explained that humans are the ultimate breeding ground for negative emotions, which is where curses come from. Although Yuki treated this mostly as a joke or an unfulfilled fantasy, her words were deeply burned into Geto's mind. The final nail in the coffin for our hero's goodness was a mission to a certain village. There, he discovered that the monkeys were imprisoning two young girls with cursed energy, blaming them for attracting curses. Geto, the person who perhaps understood the nature of curses better than anyone else, simply couldn't take it anymore. He decided to slaughter all 112 residents of that village. In this way, the constant swallowing of foul-tasting curses to become stronger, Yuki Tsukumo's theories, and the cruelty he witnessed at the hands of humans tipped the scale toward his final transformation. Imagine that every clap from the religious group over Riko's death was like a needle driven straight into Suguru Geto's heart. From that moment on, our former hero desired to rid the world of all non-jujutsu humans, once and for all. Thank you for listening to this commentary, and I'll see you in the next episode.